All right, hi, and welcome to the February MyPath MiniCast. I am one of your hosts, John Soderberg, along with my co-host,
Tanisha Waddell Pyle.
And this month, we're actually going to take a little bit of a new format to the MiniCast. We're going to have a little bit more conversation around things that are happening here within the company and some things and strides that we're taking and we're doing. But before we jump into that, we want to show you our monthly awareness highlights.
All right, great. So as you guys can see, this is Black History Month. So February does mark the start of Black History Month, a federally recognized celebration of the achievements and contributions of Black Americans have made to this country, and a time to focus on the continued work that needs to be done for racial justice. So as we think about this, it's also a time to not assume that Black people are a monolith and only center content around painful experiences. We need to make sure that we embrace intersectionality and celebrate Black joy and all of the great things that Black Americans have contributed to this country as well. And like I said, focus on intersectionality is to also to realize that Black Americans are also part of the LGBTQ plus community. We're neurodivergent, we have different abilities and come from a variety of ethnic backgrounds and so much more. So this is really a great time to really look at all those facets of who we are and celebrate our history, and also recognize the historical traumas that have happened, and also look at, again, the ways to celebrate Black joy. Like my church says, radiant Black joy. If you can see it, you probably can't see it. So this month can serve to inspire schools and communities nationwide to organize celebrations this month. And remind us to support Black-owned businesses and to buy Black and all those different things to really make sure that we are supporting our Black communities. It's also a great time to have conversations, to listen, and to support and to amplify Black voices and experiences in the spaces we are in, and to intentionally be an ally. So these are all the great things that we can do to make sure that we are supporting Black history. So in that same vein of supporting Black history and Black voices and experiences, we are actually choosing this month to focus on kind of a hot topic. So like we said, this month we're changing our format. We're kind of just having a discussion to really have some good conversations. And some of those things that we want to talk about this month is some of the challenges that marginalized communities face or have with reporting harmful behaviors that they are experiencing in the workplace. So in spring of 2022, we did a DEI survey. And in that DEI survey, we learned a whole host of things from that survey. So we learned some of the things that we're doing great to also areas that we need to grow in. But today we're going to touch on some of our experience of some of our marginalized owners, and then also some of our growth areas that we can have within HR. So we are going to bring on a special guest today. And that special guest is going to be Director of Human Resources, MyPath Director of Human Resources, Nate Mork. So he's here with us today, and we're just going to kind of start jumping into some of the things that we learned. And then then Nate's going to have a conversation with us.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's super exciting to be here.
Thanks. We're excited to have you also, Nate. So just going to touch kind of quickly on some of the points that came from that DEI survey. And I will tell you, as you know, there was hundreds of points, right? So it was a really intensive and really robust survey. But I think kind of leading up to this conversation, kind of four of the key points is that we learned from our owners that 1 in 6 of our owners have experienced or witnessed discrimination while at MyPath, which is significant. That our Black owners acknowledge that we definitely have more work to do around racial equity as a whole in the company. But then importantly that, and this is, I think, one of the things that can be concerning and we definitely want to tackle, and I know your team has been tackling, is that owners are reluctant to report when they believe they've experienced discrimination. And that more than half never reported to a manager or HR because they were worried about how it would be handled. Would it make things worse? They were worried, would it be processed to a satisfactory resolution? So then they just reluctantly don't report, which I think is common, but unfortunately doesn't make the situation better. So I know that your team and you guys have taken steps, right, to help with reporting and how do we sort of make it easier for individuals. So if you want to talk about it, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I don't think a lot of the results from the DEI survey were surprising. I think some of them were almost disappointing in the sense that MyPath as a whole has spent a lot of time and energy historically on trying to make the company a good place to be and a good place to work that's equitable for everybody. But at the same time, it's not shocking that folks are experiencing inequitable situations or harassment or different problems while they're at work. There's a lot of laws and a lot of different policies and procedures in place to ensure that there's avenues for our folks to report things to HR, their managers and supervisors. But I think one of the surprising things from the survey was that half the incidents don't get reported at all. And that's disappointing. It's hard because many people feel like either it'll make it worse, like you said, or that there might be retaliation regarding some of the reporting, or that it doesn't get handled in its completeness for all the different situations. And there's some, give and take in all of those things. If we do an investigation and someone is found to have done something wrong, usually disciplinary steps take place, and we can't really share those with everybody. But I do think one of the feedback things that we've come up with is we have to be better about looping back the folks that have reported things so that they know that it was done and that they were heard. So there's a lot of different things from that survey and a lot of good feedback and a little, hard feedback to receive. Like nobody likes to hear that things aren't perfect. But feedback is a gift and you have to do something with it and you have to take it for what it is and even decide, is this feedback something I'm going to change something for, or is this feedback something I'm going to ignore? And I think we have decided to try to make changes that help the cause in general. Some of the things that are kind of low-hanging fruit, and you've probably noticed this in the Pathfinder groups. You have a lot of HR folks popping in and trying to participate in the Pathfinder groups, and I hope that group will continue to increase as we go forward and get more participation from HR staff. I think you start to see the messaging that comes out of HR matching more closely and paralleling the messaging that comes out of our Pathfinder groups and the DEI department in general, and the things that we're trying to do. And I think there's just been a lot more outreach and work going on between broader groups and some more communication that's connected people since that survey initially started. So I think what will be exciting is when we can test and see if a lot of the things we have done changes or moves the needle on how well received some of the original DEI survey results were. So it's hard. It's not an easy thing to fix, but it does take time. But I think we had some good ideas and some good things come of it that everybody's working towards. And I'm excited for the changes that we've been able to do and things that we still have coming.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing it. So one of the things that came out of this was the Lighthouse Anonymous Reporting. So can you share with us what Lighthouse is and how that can help owners?
Yeah, no, I think the Lighthouse it's a very good example of something that hopefully levels the playing field for a lot of folks. We put in place Lighthouse, which is a hotline for individuals to use to call in and or submit online different issues that are occurring at work. It can be anything from harassment that's occurring at work to, I think some of the things that we've discovered are harassment, hostile work environments, discrimination, different items that get reported to Lighthouse that someone might not be comfortable talking to their supervisor about or their HR person about. And the reason they can do it through Lighthouse is that Lighthouse gives you a number of options on how to do it. You can report it as yourself and have contact back and forth through the system to the HR representative that it gets assigned to. You can submit complaints and issues anonymously so that Lighthouse knows who you are, but the person you're reporting to can't tell who you are. And that allows interaction between the HR representative who receives it and the anonymous person who wrote it or submitted it, without the HR person knowing who the person is. So you can have interactions back and forth to try to work on some of the issues and some of the details. And it has built good discussions, and it helps with investigations when there can be more details and questions asked for clarifying issues. But it also allows you to just be 100% anonymous, where Lighthouse doesn't know who you are, the HR person doesn't know who you are, and you can submit complaints and issues that you feel are happening or see happening across the organization. It makes it a little difficult when it's 100% anonymous and there's no way to interact, because quite often initial complaints are just that. They're statements or complaints or examples of things that a person claims or witnessed happening, but lacks details that are verifiable. So it makes it very difficult to do an investigation that's effective. And so quite often we try to reach out to individuals when they're anonymous, but they're not required to respond. And it makes it a little more difficult to bring investigations to full fruition and get them completed. So it's been a good tool. We've used it a handful of times, or a couple handfuls of times. I think there were 14 claims since it opened in 2022. And, I think one of the things to note is of those 14 claims, about 9 of them were unsubstantiated. And some of those claims, and I'll give you an example, some of them were from former employees that had filed complaints while they were employed, and investigations did occur. And those investigations came to completion already, and they were already done. So they came and it basically got reported twice. But there were some that were very, very much substantiated. 3 reports in particular were substantiated in part or in full. And those reports often have led to disciplinary steps, and in some cases terminations when the misconduct was bad enough. So it has made a difference. And I think as we've navigated through the first year, we've learned some of the quirkiness of the system, and we've tried to figure out how to work within the system to make sure we're getting all the information we need and effectively addressing the issues. But part of me is glad that it wasn't a higher percentage that were substantiated, but I was also very pleased with the fact that people have used it, and it has become a tool that's pretty well known throughout MyPath now. So it's been good. It's not easy to work with all the time because people can be very vague. But if someone feels comfortable reporting it that way versus reporting it in person to their supervisor or HR, I'm glad that they have a way to report it at all.
Yeah, that is really fantastic to learn. And you said it's open up, and was it the summer of 2022?
I think so. I think it was about mid-year when we put it in place and communicated it out to all the different companies. So, there are some things that have been reported occasionally that are like client side related. So then they get bumped to the compliance groups, and they get kind of taken out of Lighthouse that way. But I think it's proven to be a pretty useful tool, and I think it's pretty user friendly. I think folks have found it to be relatively easy to navigate when they're trying to report something to the company.
Yeah, and I know one of the ways that people can access it is that they can go to the Ready app, go to the DEI folder, and find the flyer, which has some hyperlinks within it. Is there another way that people can access that?
That's a question I don't know the answer to. But yes, I know there's a number of spots in Ready app where it can be located. It's also posted at a lot of our locations across MyPath on flyers, just on doors. Some of our companies, for example, have 100 plus locations. The easiest way to get that information out there is just to stick it on a bulletin board. So quite often that hotline is just listed as a phone number on a piece of paper posted to the doors or the walls of the programs or locations that we have.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can follow up with some links on how to reach Lighthouse.
Or a QR code.
Or a QR code to add to the video, so we have a better way of getting this.
Loves the QR code.
And I'm really glad that you shared those ways to report in, because a lot of times people may think like if they do it completely anonymous that, all done, I reported, and that's all that I need to do. But I'm glad you shared the importance of being able to make sure that you have that that if you use that option of being anonymous to make sure that somebody can reach back out to you. Because it sounds like as long as you guys can reach back out for those clarifying questions, it really allows you to be able to really investigate that to the breadth that I'm sure people would like for you to.
Well, it also gives us the opportunity to loop back with the individuals that supplied the information so that they know something's being done. One of the things that I feel strongly about and always have throughout my HR career is there's a lot of problems come when people don't feel like they were heard or that they weren't followed up with in some way, shape, or form. If I were to get in trouble and get disciplined because someone reported something to me or about me, I wouldn't want my boss telling that person, well, they were written up and given a final warning. And most people wouldn't want that information shared. So it's always that fine line on giving people feedback so that they know that something was done without doing something that, ruins the privacy of an individual who also works here. So it's an interesting conversation. It's always difficult, but Sunisha, we've had instances recently where it's like, I just feel like at the end when I kind of loop back and say, here's all the steps that were done and we're working on it. And here's some of the things that we found. At least giving that information helps people feel like they were heard. And that's one of the biggest steps in the right direction.
I love that. Yeah, people feel like their voice was heard. It's such an important and powerful thing. So thank you for sharing that.
All right. I think it's all good info. And I mean, I like I like that middle ground, right? Like, so there's the completely anonymous, but nobody could really follow up with you. But if you're really feeling for your psychological safety that you don't even want, for whatever reasons, the company to know who you are, Lighthouse can know who you are, right? So they can kind of be that intermediary. I think what I always run into when I talk to folks, the hesitancy to report is sometimes you're the only one on the team. Right. If you're the only they, them on the team and you're reporting it, right, it's very obvious who you are. If you're the only BIPOC person on the team, right. So those are those moments where it's a gut check. Do you not? And then that fear. And I think you guys always hit it on the head. And I would always reiterate, like, if at the end of the day, something is being investigated or looked into and you do feel that somebody is in any way, shape or form retaliating or taking it out on you, you need to report that too. Right. Because that can be something you can easily do something about. I get it that it's hard to like stick yourself out there and it's hard to put it out there. But if for some reason somebody is bringing it back to you, then definitely let HR know because they can handle that for you.
Regardless of whether people are found guilty of anything or not, retaliation right? is always the expectation of no retaliation is always mapped out or it's explained during investigation processes. So even when you go through an investigation, you find that someone didn't do something wrong, that person has still been told, like, you cannot retaliate against this individual for reporting something. So it is important that people know that if they are retaliated against, they need to report it. And I think that's important. It's a very important point. One of the other takeaways that resulted from the survey, as well as just the creation of Lighthouse as a whole, was the MyPath-wide investigation process for these sorts of claims. And I think we probably could have touched on that before we got into the whole discussion. But when all of the survey stuff came back, I think one of the biggest changes that happened was they put in, Meg Waldo in particular, took a process that existed at one of our MyPath companies and spread that process across all of the organizations. So now we all have a roadmap for how to deal with our different claims when they happen. And every HR person in each company knows how to use that investigation process to make sure that they're going through all the steps. And it was a learning thing from some mistakes that we made across the board in the past where things just weren't handled consistently. And now we have a good process and procedure to follow. And I think it paired up with Lighthouse and the anonymous ability for people to report through that. It's been a good pairing, and I think we've had some good results. And I'm excited for what is to come. I think we're kind of sharpening the point all the time, and we're making it a better process. So, all you can do is improve and try to make things better as you go. And I think that's what we're doing here at MyPath. So,
yeah, I love hearing about the evolution, and especially realizing that because people make mistakes. That is, and like you said, we realized that we weren't doing some things in a consistent way, and really working towards that fair, inclusive, consistent, and also sounds like transparent way to really provide people the recourse that they are looking for, because they're obviously making a complaint about something and looking for that recourse that can be fair, inclusive, consistent, and transparent. And apparently I have the light shining on my face. Even though I tried to close my blinds, but that's what happens when you record live, right? Things do happen, but it does sound like you guys are really putting some good steps in place to make it the system work across the board. So we're really happy to hear about that and learn about that, and really hope that this can really provide some insight and empowerment to any owner in our company that is looking for support in any situation that they're in. John, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask or add at this time?
No, I think it's great. I love working with Nate. He's fantastic, right? So if anybody ever needs to trust an HR guy, you can always trust Nate. That is 100% for sure. But I do think it's important, and I think there's more to come. I'll be excited to see what happens in the future. And I would just reiterate to people that if you're experiencing something, it is just the reality. You have to speak up, right? You have to speak up. You have to report it, because it can't change until you do. I mean, that's what we have learned as marginalized people, right? Nothing changes if you don't speak up. So I love that we're providing avenues to do that allows various levels of safety for people. But at the end of the day, it all hinges upon people speaking up.
Yeah.
Well, I can't speak for you guys, but I think you've both been here longer than I have. I mean, I've just been here a little over 3 years. And in the 3 years that I've been here and knowing what occurred in the year before I got here, the one thing I do feel very comfortable with at MyPath is that it is a company that is willing to change things for the better. Yeah. From rebranding from one company to another and calling it MyPath, from the changes that have occurred across DEI over the last 3 years, from the way that the company handled the pandemic and the different things that happened since early 2020, and just the different structure and leadership of HR and all the different groups across the organization. MyPath seems to, in my opinion, be very dedicated to trying to continue to improve the organization for the owners. And I think this is just another step. And I think we can continue to keep making it better. So I'm excited about the future here.
Yeah, we are too. And I'm really glad that we all are getting to work together. Like you say, even with DEI and HR, just having that collaboration where we can be a unified front to work together to make things, like John was saying, safe for our owners, so that they can feel that they can have support and recourse and an avenue for if someone isn't being fair to them, if someone isn't being inclusive to them, that they do have a trusted way of that they can get support for that. So I really appreciate you taking the time to connect with us today. I don't know if you have any last things that you like to share, like some of the things that you guys have on the horizon. I think you pretty much spoke to that. So I don't know if you have any final words. I feel like you already dropped the mic. So but this is the time if you need to do that.
No, I think, I'm lucky enough to represent the the groups in each organization now, which is very, very exciting for me. I think we have a lot of very good things that are going to come from the fact that we're a unified team all working together now. And no, I think it's just the next step in the evolution of this place to continue to grow what we're doing and make things better as we go.
Absolutely. And with that, I think that we will, because the light is here and I can do nothing about it right now. But thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time out of your schedule to be here. And we will see everybody next month.
Yeah. See you next month.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.